everyone. Hi, thanks for coming. My name is Ricardo MENDEZ. We only have 10 minutes, so this is going to be less of a post-mortem and more of a there's the corpse, look at the gunshot wounds, find me after if you have any questions. So I run a small development team at Arges Systems. We are rather distributed actually because I'm a Costa Rican, I live in Bucharest, and the art team is in England, so it's a relatively international thing. And my background is actually on game artificial intelligence, but we ended up doing our own game, and the first one we released was Hairy Tales, which is up here in the innovation showcase. You can find it and play it. So it's actually a puzzle strategy game in the vein of Choo Choo Rocket and Lemmings, where you don't control the characters directly. You have to lead them to the end, and by dragging tiles around, rearranging the stage. And initially you can just set them and go, but after you have to start moving them with the guys out there. There are power-ups, things get rather complicated. The game got a very good critical reception. It currently has a Metacritic score of 81, had excellent reviews from major sites. Apple picked it up for the major feature on the Mac App Store. It launched simultaneously on iOS and Mac, and they picked it up for a major feature on Mac App Store, but it actually stumbled commercially because of some mistakes we did. And even though clearly we did something right, I'm going to be focusing on the mistakes because I found that it's easier to learn from people's mistakes than from when writing the project, which might be very specific to it. So first things first, Hofstadter's law. It always takes longer than you expect, even when you take into account Hofstadter's law. And, taking care of the project scope is the don't drink and drive of software development. We have it under control. We're not going to screw it up. But be careful if you have even a couple things in your project that you think it might be nice if we can add this, because I assure you that some of the items that you're certain will go into the game are not going to make it. And this one actually beat us. We have reams of concept art that did not make it into the game. We have characters we even modeled. We have mechanics that we spent weeks play testing and fine-tuning until we realized that we would not have proper time to polish and make them into the game. And what you should be focusing on is not the things that you want to add, but just in getting the game out there. We did a ton of play testing. We play tested with friends all through the stages of the game, which started, as you can see it up there. All through the game's life, we play tested with friends, with strangers, with people of the web on the web. We added it on Reddit for people to try out the alphas. And here's the thing about play testing in this way, that even when you're trying the game with strangers, they still feel compelled to keep on playing just because you're watching them go at it. Somebody who bought your game but has 15 other unplayed apps who keep dragging him back with notifications and promises of free currency or whatever has no such compunction. Are actually statistics from analytics from midway during the first day that the game was out, and you can see very quickly the sharp drop on a specific level, where even with all the playtesting we did, we screwed up the difficulty curve and players were getting stuck in there. So you need to get the game out there. You need to get it in the hands of people who have zero investment in you, actual players, so that you can actually figure out what you might need to fix on your game's difficulty. The second thing is that you need to target the game. And being on an indie forum, this might sound like crash commercialism, but you cannot afford to miss this step. And I mean targeted beyond what we did, which was that we figured, people who like flexible, hardcore puzzles are going to enjoy this game. You need to figure out, is there anything in your game that might confuse your target audience? Is there anything that might put them off? For instance, if you take a look at this screenshot of the game, for example, and we know this sort of thing because people who had looked at the game, and some of the people who had looked at the game and decided to pass on it, later on read one of those glowing reviews and decided to buy it anyway, and some of them wrote to us to let us know why they had changed their mind. Some of the more casual players looked at this, and to them, with the hexes, it might as well have been a turn-based strategy game, even with the video, even with the gameplay stuff that we had out. And for the more hardcore puzzle players who were actually the people that we were interested in getting, they looked at the colorful visuals. It might as well have looked like this. And here's the thing, that's all you're gonna get. You're gonna get one look. People are flooded with offers. You probably haven't even heard of most of them because they stay at the purgatory of low chart rankings. If you're a new indie team working with an unproven IP, you're not competing with these guys. You're competing with thousands of other games that never get featured. Indie developers clawing each other in the face for 99 cents at the sub 400 rankings. And there's the thing about getting featured. Premium lives and dies by getting featured. Even though there is significantly more volume on the iOS App Store than on the Mac App Store, Hairy Tails did better on the Mac App Store because it got featured there. It got a major feature there, and it only got a new and noteworthy on iOS. On the other hand, when the Mac App Store feature went away and the sales started declining, we got a what we're playing feature on iOS, which actually made the sales on iOS pick up. There was a direct correlation between being featured and sales for us. I'd go as far as saying that if you're working on premium and you're not featured, you do not exist. And as far as Windows goes, Steam is sort of the getting featured of Windows. And sure, there's green light there, and you might think that you have a chance with it, but bear in mind how difficult it is for anything less than core to get into green light. Even Incredipede, which great gameplay, amazing visuals, and a ton of press, had a very hard time getting in. You are not a beautiful and unique snowflake. If it was that difficult for Incredipede to get in, God help us all. This is the other thing. Single use is wasteful. You know, that boss fight you did might be awesome, it might be great, it might look superb on the trailer, but how many players are actually gonna get there? You should be focusing your time on the things, on the content that 99% of your players are going to enjoy, not something that you just use on a single level. On the other hand, if you look at a game like Mega Run, for instance, a beautiful design, zero waste within a world, because even the individual pieces of the levels are reused when you run it again. And here's another thing: one-time pass is going to be bad for you. If you're working with premium, you know, you have a restriction where you cannot even, where you get nothing from setting the game free for a day. You might get a boost on your rankings, but other than that, you get nothing, and that doesn't necessarily translate into sales afterwards. Now, I'd rather have Hairy Tails be a coherent piece than forcing the purchases down its throat, but do consider this as part of your business process. Or, you know, you might as well go freemium in that case. I'm not a fan of freemium and of the design, of some of the design constraints that it imposes on you, but we had 95% piracy rate on iOS and 90% piracy on Mac, and Windows sales through this are literally a piracy rounding error for us. Sure, freemium games are going to fail too, but at least when you have a free to download game, the people who are not paying you, which will be the vast majority of them anyway, which will be the vast majority of them anyway, are going to contribute to your rankings. And finally, this is something that went very much right for us. You have to get the right people. You know, I've seen a lot of small teams fall into the beggars can't be choosers mentality, and there's a lot of advice about, oh, just go to Alldesk and find somebody cheap for your art or anything like this. That's probably the worst thing you can do. If there was something that went very right for us, why Hairy Tails really worked as a game is because I had an excellent team, and I managed to replace a bad apple early on with an artist that, while he was more expensive, he was significantly more responsible and much, much better. This is what you need to remember. If you can't afford the right team, you're not working on the right project. As for us, we're taking these lessons and we're bringing them on to our next project. So wish us luck, and like I said, find me after you have any questions. Thank you.